Here's another story about how we ended up in Tennessee from North Carolina. We moved to North Carolina in December of 2014, and actually, we were down there longer because we were living with Pat and Dave Klein and Kelly. And actually, Grandpa Butterbush came down and actually lived with us, with them, for a while before we got our house in December. We had settlement right before Christmas, December of 14. So we were in North Carolina, and Robert was working at Thomas Built Buses, and we stayed there until we moved out in February of 21. But in 2018, we had decided that we weren't staying in Thomasville very long. The town had been kind of depressed because Thomas Built Furniture moved out of there, and we did have good friends there, but we wanted to get and pick a retirement place. So we did a lot of research in retirement, and Karina had been moving down to Western North Carolina. Adam was still in California, but it turned out he eventually moved to Franklin, Tennessee. So where we are now in Tennessee was right in the middle of both of our own children. So we had spent a lot of time. We took a 10-day trip through all of Tennessee. We went across from North Carolina through Cherokee, Sevierville, looked at Pigeon Forge, Gatlin's, just nothing but touristy stuff. Then we came down through Tellico Plains, Dayton. We looked at a lot of property. We did a lot of traveling out towards Crossville, looked at property in Crossville, went down through Cleveland, Chattanooga, and did some exploring in northern Georgia. So eventually, through our travels to Tennessee and western North Carolina, and waiting until Robert would retire, we were kind of unsure which place in Tennessee we wanted to be, but we knew we wanted to head out from Thomasville, North Carolina. So while we were thinking of that, we did have a lovely big house in Thomasville. It was old, was not updated, but we did put in a new shower, and it was great when Grandpa Butterbush was with us, because what was the dining room could be a separate room locked off for him right by the screened-in porch, so he had outdoor access and a room that was all his own with his TV and his lounge chair. So then he moved out in 2015 and went back to Pennsylvania. So we turned that into a dining room, and we had a Thomasville Furniture big 12-foot table in there, which was great for dinners and crafts and projects. At that time, I was still working for FedEx, and Robert was at Thomas Built Buses. But we did put our house on the market because we figured if we sold the house, we would just be able to move into a small apartment or something until such time as Robert retired. So he picked his retirement date, which was going to be January of 2020. And so in 1819, we put our house in the market. We had it on the market for a year and a half, 2 years. We tried an auction, we tried realtors, and we never even got any kind of nothing. No ballpark offers, no offers on anything. So we don't know why we didn't sell our house. So we stayed there until such time as we found a place in Cleveland, Tennessee. But in the meantime, Robert retired in January of 2020, and he was all anxious to go to the weekly Wednesday senior club where we had weekly meetings and met with other seniors that lived in Thomasville. There was a lot of women there, but there was also a lot of men and a few couples, and so he was anxious to start his retirement. And so he had not very many, 2 months worth of retirement, which was January and February, because March of 2020 is when COVID shut everything down. But we weren't shut down and we were not fearful. And we hung out with our friends. So our friends were from the senior club, and it was the front row girls that I made friends with when I was going to the senior club before Robert retired. So it was Kathleen, and she had a husband, Richard, and then it was Belinda and Doreen and me and Betty and Carolyn. So we all ended up being the front row girls, because I sat in that front row. And even though I was friends with Martha and knew most of the people in the club, I sat in the front row by myself for probably over a year. Martha, my friend, was a back row girl. She liked to be in the back, but I was in the front, and it was so fun that when Betty and I talked, and then I met, and Kathleen and I went out for lunch at Ruby Tuesdays, and I invited her to the club, and the six of us just developed a wonderful friendship. So in March of 2020, when everything shut down, we ended up having parties at Kathleen's house. We're getting together all the time and having activities, and developed really great friendships, because we were not isolating as individuals, but we did isolate as a group. So it was the two husbands, Kathleen's husband and my husband, Robert and Richard, and then the other girls, and we called ourselves the front row girls because we always sat in the front row for senior club. So COVID had everything shut down, and you kind of just didn't know, and we still wanted to move to Tennessee, and now Robert wasn't working. So we made several trips over to Tennessee and Chattanooga, and that's when we put in offer on a piece of land with a tiny container house in Crossville. That fell through because the financing was financed as a raw land, which the interest rate was crazy. And then we ended up meeting with the realtor and trying to look online for houses in Cleveland. We chose Cleveland because it was a college town, and it was very near the Cherokee National Forest and the Ocoee River and the Hiwassee River, near Chattanooga, near Knoxville. So it was near cities, but it was also near the forest, so we could do forest and hiking and kayaking, as well as having a city nearby to go to things like the Chattanooga Zoo or the Chattanooga Choo Choo sort of events. So we finally met with the realtor after giving him different ideas of houses, but some of the houses that were on the market were sold till we got here. And we weren't really initially looking for a house because we were looking to rent an apartment. So we did go see many apartments in an apartment complex, but there were so many rules and so many costs for the internet and things that it was not cheap. And as the time went by with COVID, things got more and more expensive. So anyways, then we started looking at houses when we didn't find anything as far as the apartments, and we came to this house on Crabapple Lane, which was not on our radar. It was not on our list, and it was not a house that I wanted because it was a split. I don't know what they call it down here. I would call it a high rise in Pennsylvania. It's not a true split level like we had on Shasta Drive. So it was, you go up a few steps to the porch, and then you go in the door, and then you can go either down to the lower level, which was the level of the driveway and the garage, or you could go up a half flight of steps, and that's where the living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and 2 baths were upstairs. And as soon as we walked in the house and looked at each other, Robert and I knew it was a house for us. It already had been updated, and there were ceiling fans, and the ceiling in the living room was high rise, so it was very open and airy, and it had a little back deck and a little tiny front porch, and had then all the downstairs was refurnished as a master bedroom. So it had the laundry at the bottom of the steps by the garage, and then you went into the master bedroom, which was big and had a big walk-in closet and a big bathroom with a toilet and a double shower and double sinks, and so it was perfect for us. So we put an offer in on the house and figured we could probably live here in this new house in Cleveland if we didn't sell the other house for about 5 months, but we definitely needed to get a sale on our house in North Carolina on Cox Avenue. So I had already had lots of things boxed up because I had planned for moving for years, and so we rented a van, I guess. I don't know where we got this van, and I had been driving a lot of vans for FedEx, but I had quit FedEx in, I guess, 2016, early 2017. I'm not sure when my last day was. Did some extra time at Christmas because they changed the rules and the packages were getting heavier. But I did actually even work in North Carolina for FedEx after I had my first surgery for that ovarian cancer in 2015. So I did work even later in 2015 and 16. I think I did Christmas of 17. But anyways, after I stopped working for FedEx in North Carolina, I did work as a call center in the home for Alorica. So that was in North Carolina and Tennessee. So that worked out that we could do that when we moved here. So we went back to North Carolina and packed up all the boxes that I had packed and brought them here to our new house after we had settlement in January, even though we didn't actually move here till February. So we had both houses, and we could put the stuff in the house, and didn't actually get a moving van till later, and brought the things that we wanted to from North Carolina, even though we had gotten rid of a lot of stuff and gave a lot of things to Karina for their new house. And so they had a coffee table thing, and Karina took her piano so she could have that. So while we had the van here in Tennessee, we went and bought a washer and dryer for the house and got some other furniture pieces. And then we went back to North Carolina and listed the house. And immediately, like right that day or the next day, we had an offer on the house that we couldn't refuse because it was cash and full price and no inspections. So that was the first amazing thing, and we knew that was God was rewarding us for our faith in moving during the middle of COVID and for finding a place in Tennessee that was wonderful for us. And the fact that we sold our house immediately, and the good side of that was not only did we have to have two houses, we had a whole month with no mortgage payment because of the way the two houses sold and getting the mortgage on this house here in Cleveland. And then we got a moving van, which turned out to be kind of a fiasco because they didn't get there till late in the afternoon, and it was raining, and we had more stuff that they didn't count on in our shed. So we brought everything that we could out of North Carolina that was left there. And I don't think we got to the new house till 2 a.m. So we had just driven, and the van had driven here, and we got here about the same time. And so they're unloading, and everything's all wet and muddy from being loaded in the rain in North Carolina. And our one dresser just collapsed that was in our bedroom back in North Carolina. So we just took the drawers, and the rest of it was destroyed. And it was the owner of the company, and he had only one new helper, so it was kind of unprepared, and he didn't have the people that he needed for his company with that moving company. But it turned out fine, and we ended up here, and then we went to Vintiques a lot and got, I guess we have two marble tabletops that are antiques, and we actually got a piece of furniture that I think is Thomasville Furniture Company, and some other odd pieces. So we made the two upstairs bedrooms. One is a guest room, and the other was made into an office, and our computers and desks and everything were in there. And then we put our dining room table that was in our kitchen in North Carolina. It was in our kitchen here because we don't have a dining room. We don't have a sofa, but we had two recliner chairs and a new TV that we had gotten at the end while we were in North Carolina. So we unpacked that here. And we have what we call our stereo cabinet that we bought from our house at Shasta Drive. So that went from Shasta Drive to Glen Rock to Talisman Court to Canal Road to Jenna Circle to Cox Avenue to here with us now. So when you're married so long and you have a piece from the 1980s, that just stays with you. It's a lovely piece. It's not an Ethan Allen piece, but it's kind of a similar company called Nathan Hale. That was a company that made furniture in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. So that's the God story of the miracle of selling our house with a good offer after we had no offers for nearly 2 years, and ended up with a beautiful house here, which we're glad we have a house, because if you would have to rent here and the apartments are so expensive. Although since I haven't been feeling good and my sickness came on in 2023, after spending a lot of time creating the New Adventures Club here in Tennessee, I did want to downsize again and get rid of a lot of stuff, which we did. But I wanted to get into an apartment or something small so Robert wouldn't be burdened with this big house. Because when he first retired, he was really excited to have a retirement and have a fun time. So he was not interested in having a big yard and cleaning the gutters and those kind of chores when you're a homeowner. But we did get the gutters cleaned when Adam was here, and he took the leaf blower up in the house and stood on the roof and cleaned out the gutters with the leaf blower, so that worked real well. And Robert kind of likes driving around on the mower. So even though we don't have a humongous yard, he still has a riding mower. Most everybody in this neighborhood just has a push mower. Not everybody, or some people have lawn service. I like looking out our back window and our back deck. That's where we have the big property that is the Cowboy Church. It's nice not to have another street or rows of home backyards behind us. We have one big open mowed area that's lovely, so I love our backyard sometimes. There's pictures of me going back there in the spring and flying my kite. I always like doing fun things outside, so we've enjoyed so many things. People have talked to me about doing a book, and I would like to do my memoirs because there's stories like meeting people and God taking care of us, getting the right house at the right time, wonderful things that have happened to us. But it's also a story I want to share of how many people I've just loved in my life and brought into my life or came into my life. And I guess there's three major things there. Homeschooling in Pennsylvania and healthy living that I did, some in Pennsylvania and some in North Carolina, and the New Adventures Club here in North Carolina. And things that we did for retirement, like the Encore program. So there's lots and lots of people, lots and lots of students in the homeschool community. So there's nothing in my life that I regret, and I just love all the people that are coming to me now and telling them how I touched their lives, but at the same time, I'm so touched by their lives and how we've met and friendships developed. I do have to say about moving here to Cleveland, North Carolina in February of 21 was a step of faith, because I read in the scripture somewhere, but it was, again, no fear, and the idea that you plant your garden and live your life. So you don't pause your life just because something's happening in the world that's very negative, like COVID. So we just moved forward and took the step of faith to move in the middle of things not being open yet. So when we got here, we didn't meet anybody. It was hard to find a church. The senior center was still closed. The community centers were still closed. But two things happened that changed the trajectory, whatever that word is, of what we were thinking. Is we met dear friends that are still friends who met us and joined for game club. It was David and Judy Constance, and we were in Aldi's and people had masks on and people were still looking pretty fearful, but we found a couple with no masks and we weren't wearing masks, and we were were shopping in the only Aldi's that was here at that time. And there was this nice looking couple that didn't have masks on, and David was tall and had on a t-shirt with scripture on it, and Judy was looked like she was full of energy and had a t-shirt on that had the YMCA logo. So I said to Robert, I think it'd be safe to talk to them. So somehow we talked to them. I don't even know what we talked about. Asked them about something, church, something, I have no idea. But anyways, that was the first couple that we really met and enjoyed spending time with over the years since then. So you meet the right people at the right time, and that is such a blessing to our lives. And the other thing was we were at Tinsley Park checking out the people playing outdoor pickleball, and some people talked to us. And we said we didn't know anything about pickleball and came to just check out the park, check out the greenway. And somebody says, well, Paul's here. He's Parks and Rec. Let me introduce you. So we talked to Paul, and he was very friendly and very open. And we told him we came from North Carolina, and we were part of a senior club in North Carolina, which we explained to him was in the Thomasville City Parks and Rec division. And they offered this senior club that met every Wednesday, and he was saying that's really good. And I said, yeah, we could start something like that here, and was hoping that he would pick up on that. And he actually did talk to Corey from North Carolina at some point in time. So he helped us launch the New Adventures Club and supported us and did some printing of flyers, and we had meetings, and he introduced us to people that we should know, and we had some planning meetings at the Chamber of Commerce and at the library, made announcements in the newspaper about a new club, but he didn't want it to be a senior club, even though most of the people are senior. He wanted it to be just an adult programming, since they didn't have that much programming for adults. And then that same day, we were talking, and he loaned us some paddles. That's a whole different story about how we took paddleball by the horns. So that's on all the news stories about things that happened once we got to Tennessee.